Our world is on fire. And around that world, the reality that our future might be unlivable is sinking in. Across race, class, gender, and ability, the powerlessness we feel in the face of the climate crisis is clawing towards the surface in painful ways.
I definitely suffer from climate anxiety. I was affected by climate anxiety pretty early on.
And at that point, I felt like I was doing this by myself.
We are entering into the age of climate anxiety, an era where our global actions to address climate change are failing to meet its scale. As we bear witness to the inaction of those with the most power to prevent and prepare for catastrophe, we who care must live with a creeping sense of dread, sadness, and anger about the potential of an unlivable future. This is the story of climate anxiety, what it is, why it matters, and what we can do about it. This video is made possible by CuriosityStream and Nebula. If you don't know by now, I have over 20 bonus videos and extended editions that can be found only on the creator-made streaming platform Nebula, like my exclusive video on how we build sustainable cities, or the one I just made critiquing the wellness industry, and much, much more. You can see all of them on Nebula by signing up for the CuriosityStream Nebula bundle at curiositystream.com/OCC or using the link in the description below. Floods displaced 33 million people in Pakistan. Severe heat waves killed thousands in the US, Europe, and most recently, China. Hurricanes like Haiyan, Idai, and Maria leave scores dead in the Pacific and Caribbean. As we wake up to the reality that the climate crisis is here, is tearing apart our world, and is only getting worse if we don't take transformative action right now, we are also grappling with the intense emotional landscape that comes with those facts. Across the world, many who bear witness to the headlines, or experience those headlines firsthand, are also struggling with eco-anxiety, a concept that over the last 15 years, psychologists and mental health researchers have come to define as a chronic fear of environmental doom. Or as environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht defines it, the generalized sense that the ecological foundations of existence are in the process of collapse. And climate anxiety is a subset of eco-anxiety. It's the fear, grief, stress, anger, and exhaustion you feel thinking about how there might not be a future for your kids, grandkids, or even yourself because of unchecked climate change. However, those in the mental health field have emphasized that these are totally natural responses to a world on fire. We who are the climate and eco-anxious are grappling with, as eco-anxiety expert Panu Pakala describes, the uncertainty, unpredictability, and uncontrollability of environmental destruction. We are waking up to the reality that our future might be much darker than our present. For the oppressed majority who've witnessed and experienced the world-ending violence of racial, colonial, and capitalist annihilation, this is nothing new. Marginalized groups have been wrestling with the dread, fear, and anxiety of existential threats for centuries. The privileged, economically secure white communities, whom until now have been relatively sheltered from the prospect of an unlivable future, are now having to face this anxiety and dread head on. But these intense emotions we feel are not flaws or some disease. In fact, they're just the opposite. They reveal a deep sense of empathy and compassion within for our environment and community. If left unprocessed, however, anxiety surrounding the climate crisis or ecological degradation can easily slip into doomerism, apathy, or nihilism, which is why understanding and coping with these hard emotions is crucial. As Britt Ray, author of Generation Dread, explains,
the trick is to be able to then supportively move through the feelings so that you don't get stuck in any one dire place and end up on a train of thinking that equates to doomism.
So not only is recognizing and coping with our climate anxieties crucial for longevity in our activism, but if left unchecked, it can lead to doomism, an emotional state that is easily preyed on by eco-fascist solutions. While there is certainly more at play, we've already seen this unrecognized eco-distress bubble up in the manifestos of the El Paso shooter, as well as the Christchurch shooter, sentiments which are echoed in the calls for border closures and forced sterilizations. We need to care for our community's health when it comes to facing the climate crisis, because if we don't, our suppressed emotions can burn us out, or even worse, bubble up in violent ways. We'll get to how we can come to grips with our climate anxiety a little later, but first, we need to understand who is experiencing climate anxiety and dive a little deeper into its root causes. For each R-Changing Climate video I make, I sit down, turn on my computer, and consume the apocalypse. Whether it's disaster capitalism or the fashion industry, I've spent countless hours reading and watching how our racist, fossil fuel addicted capitalist economy is tearing itself apart. It's hard to feel happy or optimistic when you read about massive ice sheets on the verge of collapse and then read how fossil fuel companies are posting record profits. I frequently fear for the future and grieve the damage that climate change has already foisted on this world. But I also know that I'm not alone. A 2019 poll by the American Psychological Association found that 47% of respondents respondents aged 18 to 34 said that their anxiety about the climate was affecting their daily lives. While a global study of 10,000 young people aged 16 to 25 found that 84% were at least moderately worried about climate change, and 45% said that their feelings about climate change negatively affected their daily life and functioning. Climate anxiety is widespread and is disproportionately affecting the youngest generation, a generation whose very future seems uncertain. Often this climate anxiety is not just tied up in the collapse of a future world. It is exacerbated by the perceived failures of governments and leaders to adequately address this crisis at the scale it requires. This was the impetus for Greta Thunberg's school strike. It's what drove activist Vanessa Nakate to speak out, and it's what's propelling millions of people towards climate movements across the world. We are living in an era where a climate crisis is already driving extinction-level events and killing millions, and yet our global leaders are doing very little to prevent it. The anxiety that I and many others feel as a result of this inaction and uncertainty makes sense, and this climate distress is made even more acute for the survivors of climate disasters. As the climate crisis gets worse, the number of those who must live with the trauma of hurricanes tearing apart their homes and families, droughts rendering whole livelihoods unfeasible, and wildfires burning hometowns to piles of ash will only grow. 4 months after Hurricane Harvey flooded Houston, a survey found that 18% of respondents were experiencing serious psychological distress. While in the wake of Hurricane Maria, 7% of Puerto Rican students surveyed displayed signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. And as the world heats up and the atmosphere fills with carbon dioxide, it will be even more difficult to deal with the emotional scars of climate change than it is right now. In part, it's because it'll be physically harder to think in hotter climates. Study after study has found that warmer temperatures lead to worse mental health outcomes. And even our ability to do basic thinking could decrease by 25% by the end of the century due to increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And as temperatures rise, so too does the rate of those taking their own lives. This paper found that unmitigated climate change could cause an estimated 9,000 to 40,000 additional suicides by 2050 in just Mexico and the United States alone. These immensely turbulent times are leaving us with turbulent emotional landscapes. We are anxious because the world is burning right in front of us, and those with power seem to be doing very little about it. We are anxious because our whole world has been upended by disaster, and we have very few tools at our disposal to process it all. This anxiety and the complex emotional landscape that rises from it is, as Britt